Hi there, I'm Jody Villamere, and this is the webinar, Take Back Your Day. I'm re-recording this for those of you who could not make it to the webinar this week because I know that the life of the principal is such that things come up all the time. And so the stuff that you've identified that you want to do sometimes gets overshadowed by the things that you have to do. And so I'm going to send this out to you and hopefully you will find it helpful. All right, let's get started. First of all, my guess is that you signed up for this training because you often feel like one of these things is part of your life as a principal. Like you want to get in classrooms, but your whole day is hijacked, putting out one fire after another. You're working nonstop, but rarely on the things you feel like will really improve your school. Your entire day is taken up by people sticking their head in your door saying, you got a minute, when you meant to go out and go into classrooms. So you're showing up because you're tired and this work is a lot. And while this job is incredibly rewarding, but it's also one of the hardest jobs I ever had too. So you're not alone if you feel like this job isn't sustainable sometimes, because the truth is only about a third of principals remain at the same school after 5 years. And then only about 60% of principals are still serving as principals at all somewhere after 5 years, meaning about 40% of principals leave the role entirely before the 5-year mark. And so the problem is we don't have principals with a lot of tenure leading their schools for a long time. And the research tells us that the longer an effective principal stays in their building, the better those students do, the better those teachers do. And the better the community does. And so helping principals find their way to do the work that they really want to do is my mission. It's what I do now. I'm actually a retired principal, and I'll tell you about myself in just a few minutes. What I do is I help support principals so that hopefully they can stay in their jobs longer to do really important work and feel supported and feel like their work is rewarding instead of taxing and eating their whole lives. So today, I'm going to show you a few things. I'm going to show you how to pinpoint exactly where your time is going. I'm going to show you an exercise that I do with all of my private coaching clients so that you can kind of identify what is stealing your time from instructional leadership. And then also we're going to talk about building daily structures so you can get to classrooms more often and how to prioritize those. And then some simple systems to just protect and prioritize the work that you feel like is really improving your work. I'm going to take just a minute to tell you a little bit about myself. So I've been working in education in Texas for over 30 years. I spent 27 years as a classroom teacher and then assistant principal and an elementary principal and middle school principal. I was a principal for about a decade. And then my last few years, I was a curriculum director for the district I was in, and then I retired in 2021, about a year after the pandemic, after we all made it through the pandemic and all the things that came with that in the aftermath. And then when I retired, I became a consultant and a leadership coach. I'm a certified executive coach. I work with principals actually all over the US. So anyway, before we jump in, I want to be really upfront with you. Yes, I'm absolutely going to do a time management training for you. I'm going to share with you all the tips and strategies that I help the private clients that I coach build up as part of their arsenal of survival tools and getting it all done tools while still having time to go home to their families in the evenings. And so I'm going to share all that with you. But then I also have a special opportunity, something I've been working on and building for principals over the past year that I want to share with you at the end. This is a freebie that I was offering for people that came to the live webinar. I'm going to send you out a link to watch the webinar. And if you get a chance to watch it and then you write back to me that you watched it and share with me one thing that you learned that you want to try, then I will email this to you. And this is a Principal Spring Hiring Handbook. I'm going to open it up right now, just kind of show you what's inside. So if you watch my webinar and send back a response to me of one thing you'd like to try, then I'll share this with you. And you'll see there's hiring best practices in here, and then how to use a structured interviewing tool that I have created in here that I'm going to show you in just a second, how to use the structured tool, what a 3, 2, and 1 answer from a candidate looks like and sounds like, why to use a structured tool, right? So it keeps your decision making as unbiased as possible, especially if you're hiring by committee. This talks about kind of what to listen for when you're in interviews if you haven't done a whole lot of interviewing yet in your career. This one is about reference checking. I've got a reference checking form right here. Everything that's linked in here lets you make a copy. That way you can kind of make it your own, but this is a reference checking form that you can use. And once you open up and make your own, you can edit it and include questions that you like to ask and remove some of the ones that you think are redundant. This is the best page, of course. This page has 14 different sets of interview questions, everything from special ed, aid, and paras to special education teachers, to secondary math and science teachers, to pre-K through 2 teachers, to middle school teachers, high school teachers, principal secretary. All of these are developed questions. And then I'll show you, I'll open this right here, and you'll see that like this is the principal secretaries. If you're hiring an admin assistant, these are some questions you can ask and your committee can ask. And of course you can come in and edit that any way you want to. So anyway, and there's a blank one right here. If you click on this, it'll help you make a blank one so that you can use it however you'd like. Also, there's a slide deck to train your hiring committee. So a lot of times when you're going to sit down with a hiring committee, you have a group of people that may or may not have sat in a lot of interviews before. So a lot of times we'll include teachers on our interview committees, or our counselors, or whomever we think is really important, some people in our office staff, if we're going to hire an office staff member. And so we want to make sure that everybody in the committee is well trained on how we interview, the kinds of questions we can ask, the kinds of things we cannot ask. And then also you want to kind of calibrate, what do we think a 3 sounds like? What do we think a 2 answer sounds like? What do we think a 1 answer sounds like? So that when people are taking notes during the interview and scoring how that person's doing, then they can, you guys kind of have a common understanding. So there's a whole slide deck for you to train your hiring committees, so you guys can be on the right page as you go into the semester. Anyway, so I'm happy to share this with you. For free. Obviously, this is something that I sell separately, but I'll share it with you if you listen to the webinar and send me back a little message. So I'm happy to do that. So let's get started here. All right, let's get started. We're going to skip that just for time's sake. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to share several strategies with you. My recommendation is that you look and listen for one that you think would fit into how you already kind of lead and do business, right? So something that you think you could try to start doing with Fidelity, something you could put into your daily practice for you to try first. I would not say you need to adopt every single one of these strategies and try to do them all next week. That would be too heavy a lift, too much change all at once for you. So I would just look for something that speaks to you, something you're not already doing that might help you be more organized, be more strategic about how you spend your time, something that feels doable to you that you can try. So I always encourage people to just say, hey, let's choose one and try it over time, and then we're going to talk about it and see how you do. All right, let's talk a little bit about why the principal's time matters so much. So principal effectiveness has a huge measurable impact on student learning. The way that you choose to spend your time shapes your school. Instructional leadership is not something you can just do in your leftover time. If you aren't scheduling it and scheduling everything else around the instructional leadership activities you want to do, then the time that you're spending is not as strategic as it could be and isn't probably leading to the outcomes that you want. So we'll talk about that in just a minute, but I wanted to share a couple of research studies that talks about how important the effectiveness of the principal is. So on average across schools, the impact of having a principal that's 1 standard deviation more effective than an average principal is as much as 7 additional months of learning in a single academic year for students. Think about that. That's almost a full year's learning that can happen when you've got a seasoned, effective principal who's focusing on teaching and learning in the way that needs to happen and is leading a campus with a healthy learning culture. The difference is huge for students. And so they say, not that they say, but the research tells us that the person with the most impact, or the thing with the most impact on student achievement, is the effectiveness of the teacher in the classroom. That's number 1. And number 2 is the effectiveness of the campus principal. Anyway, another point is highly effective principals raise the achievement of a typical student in their schools by between 2 and 7 months of learning in a single school year. And that's from a totally different study done 6 years later. So the consistency of how effective you are affecting student outcomes is consistent over time and research studies. Okay, so the big shift in strategy is really choosing what not to do. Not everything deserves the principal's time. A principal should only do the work that only they can do, right? So hear that again. You should only be doing the work that only you can do. Everything else should be delegated. So especially for principals in really big schools, like if you're a high school principal in a really large school, you probably know this better than most, and you probably utilize your assistant principal staff and your administrative assistant staff maybe more than we do in smaller schools where we tend to wear more hats and do more of the jobs ourselves. But trying to remember that delegation is really important and that you should be trying to focus on the work that only you can do as the campus principal is something to think about when you put something on your plate and agree to do something. Be thinking about, is this how I should be spending my time in order to make things better for teachers and students in my school? All right, let's talk about the 80-20 Pareto principle. So if you haven't heard this, it's been around a long time. It is kind of something that people talk about in the business world quite a bit, but it's the idea that that around 20% of your actions produce about 80% of your outcomes, for the good and bad of that. So if 80% of your results come from 20% of the causes, you need to identify what are your highest leverage impact strategies or highest leverage things that you spend time on that actually bring about student outcomes. And I would wager that those activities are things like spending time in classrooms, attending PLCs where teachers are talking about student achievement and planning for instruction, attending professional learning alongside your teachers so that you have a learning environment, showing up in spaces where people can see that you're present and available and accessible. So we're going to talk about open door policy in a minute, though. That's accessible doesn't mean 24 accessible to everybody all the time. We'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, so the idea that identifying your most impactful things you're working on and then prioritizing those in your calendar and protecting that time with everything you're worth, that's going to move your school forward, right? So we want to identify what are those 20% things that are giving me 80% of my outcomes and really prioritize those things. That's the Pareto principle. All right, so something I do with each of my private coaching clients is that we usually start out our work together using an Eisenhower matrix. So if you've never used an Eisenhower matrix before, what it is a way to organize and categorize the kind of work that you're doing. As, for example, that green box is things that are important and urgent, which means these are the things that need to get done right away, right? These are the things on your to-do list that you knew that you needed to handle this morning, whether that's call back your superintendent, there is a high priority, issue with a student, a safety issue those are the important to do right now, right? Then you have things that are important, but not time-bound necessarily. They're important, but not urgent. So those are the things that you schedule on your calendar over the next week or two to make sure that you're getting those things done. Those are things like classroom visits. So you're looking at your calendar, you're blocking out the times you want to spend in classrooms, whether it be for formal evaluations or just for walkthroughs. And so making sure that you have those things scheduled out so you can prioritize them. Then there's the kinds of things that are urgent, have to get done right away, but they're not that important per se. Like they might just be certain kinds of requirements or reports that are due and things like that. Those are the kinds of things you can delegate to other people. And so then identifying the things on your calendar that fall in that category. And then of course you have your things that are not important and not urgent. And those are the things that make it to your to-do list for some reason and probably don't need to be on there at all, right? Nobody really needs to be spending time doing those things. So anyway, what you do, or what I do with my clients, is we sit down with their calendar and their to-do list over the course of a couple of weeks, and we categorize everything that's kind of come through their office, come across their desk, come into their purview, and we categorize as many things as we can into this Eisenhower matrix. And then we just have some reflections around How are you spending your time the most? Where do you want to be? Where do you think you make the biggest impact? And then let's plan going forward what your next few weeks is going to look like based on those reflections. So basically, it's just a reflection opportunity for you to really think around, how am I spending my time and how can I spend it more effectively? And are the things that I'm working on the top 20% priorities that are going to give me 80% of my outcomes? So micro habits that protect instructional leadership time. So there's a great book out there. It's an organizational book for kind of the business world, and it's called Eat That Frog. And so if you've never seen it before, it's really kind of small book, and it's a really good listen too. Like if you have a chance to listen to it on audiobook, like if you go to the gym or you have a long drive to work and you listen to audiobooks a lot, Eat That Frog's a really good one, because he explains not only a lot of time management tips and strategies, he also gives you the research behind why they work. So for example, we're going to talk about to-do lists. Most of you probably have a to-do list already that you're working from, but how often you interact with it and think about it and use it to plan for what's coming up the next day and the next week might vary, right? So in Eat That Frog, he talks about spending 10 minutes at the end of every single day to look at your list of to-dos for the next day. The most important things on your list, find the things that you know are going to really impact instruction in a positive way, or impact your leadership, impact your school and students in a positive way, and circle those things. And those are the things you want to make sure that you protect, right? So you want to make sure those are on your calendar for the next day or for the coming week. But just spending time with your to-do list for the following day allows you to come in and be focused on what you're supposed to work on right away. So there's not a lot of you coming in, trying to figure out what you're going to work on for the morning. All of a sudden, you've opened your email and 45 minutes have gone by, and you were going to visit classrooms and it's on your to-do list, but you got distracted and 12 other things came up and you started reading something else, and then you tried to dabble in getting your newsletter ready. So instead of being focused on the things that you prioritized or wanted to prioritize, those ideas weren't fresh in your mind. So spending 10 minutes at the end of every day to review your to-do list, make sure you know what the most important things are, make sure they're calendared. And then at the end of the week, you do your big to-do list for the coming week. So you have your big to-do list for the coming week, have them separated out by days of the week if you need to, and just be aware that you're leaving for the weekend with already having spent some time reflecting on what did I get to this week? What didn't I get to? And what do I need to get done next week that's really important, and making sure they're on your calendar. So spending the time doing that helps. So when he talks about eating that frog, though, when you have a to-do list, you usually have an item or two on there that are like your least preferred activities, right? We talked about that with students a lot of times, a more preferred and the least preferred activity. But we have those too as grown-ups. And so a lot of times we skip over the hardest things on our list for some of the easy, low-hanging fruit. So the Eat That Frog idea is that you come in the morning and you do the hairiest, yuckiest thing on your to-do list that you really don't want to do today, whether it's writing a sensitive email to somebody, or stopping by someone's classroom to see them and talk to them, or calling back a parent that you know is going to be a tough conversation, or finishing up a report, or whatever it is that you have that you just are dreading that you don't want to work on, right? So you find the thing on your to-do list that is the biggest, hairiest thing to get off your plate, and you do that thing right away, because that takes it off of your mind and it quits taking up space that you can use for other strategic thinking. And so if you knock that thing out right away, then you can get on with the rest of your day. Now, of course, for principals, if those things are things like classroom observations or walkthroughs, sometimes we have to do those when the windows are right? So we have to do them when we know teachers are available and teaching the class periods we want to see, and those kinds of things. So I understand that that doesn't always 100% fit, but they call that eating the frog. So let's talk a little bit about your open door policy, right? So a lot of school leaders feel like we have to have an open door policy in order for people to think that we're approachable and available to them when they need us. And so what we do is we leave an open door 24/7 for anybody to come in and out of our office whenever they want to, right? So open door kind of equals open season on your time, which communicates to people that your time is not very important, and that for every person who pokes their head in your door to say you got a minute and then they take 7 minutes, means that the things that you prioritize, like getting into classrooms or attending PLCs or IEP meetings, whatever those things are that you want to be involved in and show up for, get overtaken by, have you got a minute? Have you got a minute? Have you got a minute? And then you've given away all of your minutes. You can't get into classrooms like you want to, or you also then don't finish some of the clerical things that you need to do, whether it's a data report for your supervisor, or it's your newsletter for the week, or it's your communication to the staff, or whatever that thing is that is a clerical thing that you need to handle and do, because that's part of the job. It's not going away. You then save that for your nights and weekends. And that encroaches on your time to recoup and recover and spend time with your family and friends and be able to recharge so that you can sustain and survive in this job, because you've given away every minute of your day to every single person who's come by your office, whether you're, in there or they catch you in the hallway or whatever. And so increasing your expectations increasing your expectations for if someone wants to spend more than a minute passing in the hallway to ask you a quick question, right? So I always say, if you're out and about in your building and someone catches you, walks with you to your next observation or your next meeting, whatever, asks you a quick question, whatever, that's great. That, you actually save some time in that moment. It keeps them from coming into your office and wanting to close the door and spend up 15 minutes or whatever. And so then anybody else who wants more than just we saw you in the hallway and asked you a quick question, but if it's something personal or something they want your focus on, then they should get with your administrative assistant and make a 15 to 20 to 30-minute appointment that they can put on your calendar, come to your office, and then you can prioritize that time and you're really present with that person and you can listen and be there for them for that time. And if you will explain this to your staff, right? I never say to shift your open door policies without talking to your staff. At your next staff meeting, if you're going to change how you do open door policy, you need to talk to your staff first and say, hey, I want to prioritize time in your classrooms. I want to be able to walk alongside you as a leader and a learner. And I can't do that if I'm in my office taking every person that walks in all day long. And so what I'd like to do is be more strategic with my time so that I can actually show up in your PLCs and support you and visit your classroom. So I see what teaching and learning are looking like, and I'm in it with you, and I know how hard it is. And maybe I actually see firsthand some of the students that are the most challenging and you need the most support with. And so I can't do that if I'm in my office just taking every single person who walks in the door. So if you need a few minutes with me, see so-and-so and book something on my calendar so I can actually be focused in the moment with you and not have my head 12 different places because I was in the middle of something else when you came into my office. And so it's not that I don't want you to be able to access me whenever you want, but when I do that, it keeps me from being able to show up where I make the biggest impact, which is in your classrooms, around the campus, showing up for you and students in real time. And so believe me, they will understand and they will help you hold true to that. And also, the more they see you out on campus, the less they will come looking for you in your office, believe it or not. The quieter the office is going to be because they're going to see you out and about all the time, and people will be able to ask quick questions, interact with you. They're not going to have the same level of questions all the time when they actually feel like where teaching and learning is happening on a frequent basis. So think about your open door policy and think about amending that a little bit. All right, let's talk about calendaring. So calendar the work that matters. So before your week starts, and if you're not having a weekly administrative assistant meeting with your admin assistant, I would add that to your calendar. A 30-minute, either at the start or the end of the week with your admin assistant to sit down and talk about your to-do list, your calendar, what you're going to be saving time for, and what you're going to be protecting, what's the most important work for you to do and why it's important for you to protect that work, right? And then your admin assistant will help you protect that time, right? So I can tell you that CEOs and executives and even your superintendent have administrative assistants that are protecting their time. They're coming in, they're reminding them of different appointments, they're pushing them out of the office to go take care of the things they're supposed to go take care of that they committed to. And they're also, if someone's walking into the office while that principal or that executive is going off to do important work, they then redirect that person who's coming in to say, hey, come over here and see me, and I'll find some time on their calendar. They're actually going into a classroom right now and can't see you right this minute. And you can smile and wave and say, hey, yeah, make an appointment. I'll see you later. I really want to talk to you and hear what you got in your mind. You know, they will not be offended by that, and they will see that you're actually in it with them and doing the work, but you've got to calendar that time. So I wanted to show you a little bit of what like a week ahead calendar might look like. So here's a picture of my calendar, and you'll notice in a minute we're going to talk about email, but you'll notice first thing that I have scheduled 15 minutes of email checking time at the beginning, lunchtime, and end of my day. And that's it. Again, I'm going to talk about email in just a minute, so I'm not going to get too deep into that, but why I have email time scheduled, there's a reason for that. We'll talk about it. Then you'll see at the beginning and the end of the week, I've got a weekly meeting, one's an hour-long meeting with my admin team. That's my other assistant principals. When I was a middle school principal, it was all my assistant principals and my counselors and my instructional coaches. We all met together every single week to make sure that we were all on the same page, leading, teaching and learning, and prioritizing, and also delegating important work to other leadership people on the campus so that I could make sure that I was being present where I needed to be. And then a weekly meeting with my admin assistant so she could make sure that she was holding me accountable too to all the things I'd committed to. Then you'll see throughout the week, I've created a chunk, like a 2-hour chunk, 3 days a week to start with for classroom visits. And formal evaluations can take place in those windows. Walkthroughs can take place in those windows. And what I can tell you is, just to start with, 6 hours a week of walkthroughs. It doesn't look like that much time on your calendar, or 6 hours a week of classroom visits. It's quite a bit of time, and more time than I usually spent as an administrator actually going into classrooms. And so start there. And then as you get better and better at managing your time like this, then you can increase it and maybe had 4 blocks, or have the blocks be 3 hours, or have it be a whole afternoon, right? Like maybe alternate your days so that you've got Monday mornings and Tuesday afternoons and Wednesday mornings and Thursday afternoons. Of course, there may be one day during a week when you're off campus the whole day at the principal's meeting, right? So obviously that would be on your calendar too. So this is not a week where you've got a principal's meeting, clearly. But you'll see I also have those green sections that I call office hour. And those office hours are hours in which you are allowing yourself to sit down at your desk with your door closed and actually focus and work on important work that you have to do. So that means that you're really focusing on getting the report done that you need to get done, calling the references you need to call around an important hire for the campus. Because also, reference checking can be done by your administrative assistant or by your assistant principals. And so you don't always have to be the one doing that, but it may be a really important position. You want to talk to people yourself and hear from them whether or not this person would be a good hire. That's important. I get that. Anyways, but these office hours are protected time. And so you get to go in there, close your door, and your administrative assistant protects you during that time, which means if somebody's coming to your door during that time, unless they have a real red hot emergency, right? Fire, flood, or blood, right? So if it's not one of the big 3, then they need to make an appointment and come back later, because you actually are getting some things done that you are being strategic about. And this isn't that many hours of your week that you're doing that. And you're doing that so that you can then get back out into classrooms, because your clerical stuff is taken care of. You're not trying to do it at night and on the weekends. If you're writing your newsletter, Sunday night every week, you're taking time from your family, from yourself, to just recoup and recover. Sunday scaries are bad enough without having to actually work on Sundays. So anyway, that's why those office hours are built in there, so that you can get in there, shut the door, and get some work done. Now, that's also a reason for why your to-do list needs to be really strategic. Your to-do list needs to be on point. You should have gone through it the day before you left, identified, hey, this is on my list for tomorrow. Here's some clerical things I'm going to circle. And during my office hour tomorrow, I'm going to handle this one and this one, or this one, right? So that you already know when you get in there and shut the door, what it is you're going to be working on. Because if you don't know that already, then you're going to get in there and you're going to scramble about and try to figure out, how am I spending this time? What do I need to do it? What things do I need to pull up? All of a sudden you're 30 minutes into your office hour and you're just getting started on whatever that is. But if you were clear the day before you left on your to-do list about what it is you're going to work on during your office hour that day, you could literally walk into your office, pull that thing up, and start hammering away on it and get a good 45, 50 minutes of work done in that office hour and probably get that one thing done. And so I always encourage people to focus on one thing at a time. Our brains don't really multitask. We switch from task to task, and that task switching takes time out of our office hour block to figure out how to move from thing to thing. So have the thing planned that you know you're going to work on during that office hour. Go in there, shut the door, do it, and then be done, and then get back out into the classrooms. So, you know, on the days when you don't have classroom visits posted, you could actually go into classrooms if you have more time than what you've actually allocated. All right, so that's about strategic calendaring. So this is about managing your office time, and those are the things I just talked about, right? We don't really multitask. Quit checking your email during that time too. That's not email time. That working office time is not your email time. You have your email times set throughout the day, and the rest of the time you leave your email closed. And so I want to get back to, where's my email? Okay, so I'm going to kind of skip over a few things only because I want to shorten this. So this is delegation that frees you up, right? So why don't we delegate? Sometimes we don't delegate because we feel like, gosh, it takes me more time to tell somebody else how to do it than to just do it myself. That's true the first time, but if you spend a little time in teaching somebody how to do something and then let them do it from now on, you've freed up all your future hours you could have spent on that thing, right? Or sometimes we fear that that person won't do it to the level that we will because we've been doing it for a while, we're really good at it. We have pride in it. We identify part of our leadership capabilities around that thing. But if somebody else can do something, they call it the 70% rule. If somebody else can do a job 70% as well as you can, let them do it. And then let them grow into it. They're going to learn and become an expert eventually also. And then you build capacity in your staff. So if you're not delegating a lot of those things, a lot of times we make a switch from assistant principal to principal, and then we don't leave behind those things that we used to work on as assistant principals. We kind of keep some of those close to the vest, or we want to control them up close. And it's like, you know what? Give your other leaders in your building the chance to build those same skills that you got to build. All right, now let's talk about your email. There we go. Tame your email monster. So here's some tips for how to kind of deal with your email monster. I'm going to close that down. This just says you didn't become a school leader to spend all day in your inbox, and yet somehow you do. First of all, one of the things that I always say is empower your administrative assistant to help you with your email. And so sometimes principals will tell me things like, that's not somebody I really would trust to read all my email, or they might read it and they're not always really confidential. And so they tell the other office staff members things, and or you come in as the new principal and your administrative assistant's been there a long time and they're really, they're really loyal to all the staff over you. And so what I can tell you is, if your administrative assistant isn't somebody that you would trust to read your email for you, that's not the right person for that position. And either you have to develop that relationship with them so that you can trust them at that level and they trust you, or you have to get somebody else into that position because it's a crucial position. And so what you would do then is you would train your administrative assistant to be the first person to put their eyes on your email so they can weed it out and organize it before you have to look at it, because there's a lot of things that come into your email box that you don't even need to spend time on, but you do because you have to weed through it, right? Because I can tell you, principals of large high schools are typically not reading their own email. Your superintendent, if you're worried like, oh, but my emails are confidential or whatever, your superintendent is not reading their own emails. Their administrative assistant is going through their emails first and making sure they see the ones that they need to see that are important for them to see, and they're handling the rest for them. And so helping your administrative assistant figure out how they can support you. And that is really important. And so one of the things I talk about is the pre-sort. So your administrative assistant will take the first whack at your email and they'll get rid of all the spam, anything that's a sales call, anything that's trying to sell them something, anything they don't need to see, and they can just delete those, right? And then the rest they can put into folders for you. Urgent means during your next email window, you have to read that grouping first, urgent. Right? You'll have another folder around needs a response, which means, if you have a 24 or a 48 hour response guarantee in your district, then you can open that one up and respond to those emails within the time frame that you've committed to. To do means that there's probably some kind of action required on your part that's not something your administrative assistant can do for you. And then things that have to be scheduled or things that she's put on your calendar based on that. And then there might be a folder for just FYI, things that people sent you or copied you on, because you get copied on all kinds of things that you don't need to be copied on. And so she might feel like there's some certain things in there that you probably want to see, and the rest she's probably either forwarded to someone else to handle or gotten rid of that you don't need to see. Of course, her being able to, or him being able to sort all of your email like that doesn't happen immediately. Like, you need to sit down with them and go through your email together a few times first before you turn it over to them. So they go through and they can ask you, where do you think this one goes? Where do we think this one goes? What do we think we do with this one? Do I need to see this one or not? And go through your email a few times like that, and then let them take it over. And then after that, then they can, if there's something comes up and they're just not sure, they can just ask you about it, right? But over time, they get really good at, I know what they need to see, what they don't need to see. And if your administrative assistant's plate is too full to provide this kind of support for you, I would look around at what kinds of things he or she's working on that might be shared through others, right, with others. And so it might be that she's doing something that you could then have somebody else in the office staff doing, whether it's your front office, your front desk person, or if you have a family liaison. I don't know, different schools have different people in their office staff. And I realize if you're at a very small campus and it's just you, your admin assistant, and your AP running the whole show, it may look different for you. But it might be that, like, maybe your administrative assistant is handling all the subs. Well, that maybe is something somebody else could be handling and not your admin assistant. Anyway, so take a look at that. Here's a mission-based auto reply also. So if you don't have an auto reply coming out of your email all the time, not just when you're out of the office, but just a thank you for emailing me. I'm prioritizing teaching and learning on our campus, so I'm probably not in my office as your email comes in, but I'll get back to you within 24 hours or 48 hours, whatever your time frame is, expectation is in your district. And then if you have an emergency, please contact so-and-so at the front desk, and have a phone number there or an email there so that they can get to somebody if there's some kind of emergency that they need to handle. But it communicates, hey, I am prioritizing teaching and learning on the campus. I'm probably not in my office, and I don't sit by and check my email all day long because I want to be present for our teachers and students every day, doing the most important work that makes the school great for your kids. So you want to have a mission-based auto reply on all the time, so people don't have an expectation that you're literally sitting there waiting to answer their email, and that they have somebody they can reach out to if it's an emergency. Anyway, so that's tame your email on monster. Quit let it running your whole day. So go in there, open your email during the times of day when you have allocated for them, right? Go in there and open your email, go through the folders that you have, and take care of what you need to take care of, and then shut it down. Do not be checking your email all day long. The only time you open it again is when you have another window of opportunity where you're going to go in there and look at it. And then your administrative assistant can be watching for things that you need to know about right away. For example, your superintendent reaches out to you and say, hey, I need to talk to you today. Obviously, if you got that email and you're doing classroom rounds or whatever, that's something that your administrative assistant could text you. Hey, when you get a break, your superintendent wants to talk to you. Because of course you want to know about that right away. Or a school board member is coming by to visit the campus, they'll be here in 15 minutes, right? Those kinds of things they need to know to reach out to you right away. But that you should not have your email open and just be reading it all the time. Close it down, close the window. All right, so let's talk about boundaries, right? So I was probably a good 4 years into my first principalship. when I started really feeling like the job was taking a huge toll on my personal life and my family and my ability to, um, show up every day in the job feeling rejuvenated and refreshed and able to do the work. And so one of the things I began to do is make some boundaries around when I was checking email, because as you know, a lot of things come through email. We've got the mad mama emails that come in sometimes, or other things that are conflict resolution stuff, or things that we need to try and solve, that are a problem, come to us via email. And so when I would go home in the afternoons, I began to tell my staff, when I go home, I'm not checking email when I leave school in the afternoons, and I'm not checking email on the weekends. And so if you have something that's an emergency, my staff has my phone number. My administrative assistant has my phone number. My boss has my phone number. They can text me or call me if an emergency comes up that needs to be handled right away. Or we also have the alert systems, the emergency systems where the anonymous alerts and things that people are entering from the school that may be things that we have to handle over the weekend. So that might be something also that comes across your phone, that you may have to handle in an off time, but those are kind of fewer and far between. But if you're reading email every evening at your house, so after dinner, you open every email and take a peek, all of a sudden there's something in there. A parent's mad at a teacher. They want their kid pulled out of that classroom. They want this X, Y, and Z, or this thing happened, or this staff member is complaining about X, Y, or Z. Now you are expending your mental energy that could be spent on relaxing, rejuvenating for your next day, spending time with your family. And now you're worried about that thing that you can't do anything about till tomorrow morning. And you're probably not going to sleep well because you're going to worry about it. And now your whole evening and your whole sleep are ruined because you opened your email and read something that you can't do anything about to the next day. Because you're certainly, if you opened it at 8 p.m., you're not going to email a parent back at 8 or 9 p.m. at night, unless it's life and death. And every once in a while, something comes up, this life and death, right? And that's when people will call you or text you on the phone, or it'll come through your tip line, and it'll be something you have to deal with right away because it is something super serious. But like I said, I can only remember a couple of those in my entire principal career where it was like, it was a Saturday night and I had to call the police and they had to go to somebody's house and we had to do a well check. Like that was only a couple of times in my whole career. And so for the most part, when I stopped reading emails on the nights and weekends, nothing happened. There was no negative repercussion. That next morning when I got to school and I had my email time, I could look at that person's email and figure out what I was going to do during my workday. I didn't have to do that and worry about it and worry about solving it all weekend long. I've read it on Saturday morning. A mad mama email comes in at 11 p.m. Friday night. And you're not going to call a parent over the weekend or email them over the weekend or whatever. So, but if you've got your automatic reply on, you can reply, say, set your weekend one up and, I'm enjoying weekend with my family and I'll respond to you first thing Monday morning or as soon as I can when we get back to school. And people are going to have to respect that because it's okay for you to have a life, and if you don't start making those boundaries, this job will eat your whole life. And it's really great to model those healthy boundaries for your teachers as well and tell them you don't expect them to be on call for everybody 24/7. So that's the last thing I have to say about that. All right, so that kind of wraps up most of my time management tips for this session. There's some other things that if we were working one-on-one with coaching, we might work on together, but those are kind of some of the key skills and strategies that I have principals focus on when we're working through figuring out how to be more strategic in their leadership. And so just I'd like you to think about, like, which one of those do you think you might be able to implement in the way that you're kind of doing your own business right now? All right, so today we focus on just one piece of principal leadership, and that's protecting your time and organizing your time. But the reality is that, just protecting your time alone doesn't lead to the kind of teaching and learning you want to see in your campus. More time in classrooms is absolutely crucial, and sometimes just your presence raises the level of achievement for both teachers and students. But you also need to know, what are you looking for in classrooms? How do you give feedback that helps teachers grow their practice? How do you get teachers to, participate in professional development that they need, but also that they want. And how do you know what those things are? Do you know how to lead PLCs, or can you evaluate whether or not your PLCs are doing well and what they should be doing? How do you build teacher buy-in, and how do you create systems that sustain growth on your campus? So these are all part of being the instructional leader for your campus that you may or may not feel like an expert at yet. So I want to invite you to something I've been working on for the past year. I've been building something really special for principals around the country, and it's called the Purposeful Principal Club. And I'm going to share a little bit about it with you right now. First of all, inside the Purposeful Principal Club, there is a course of 7 modules around instructional leadership. Everything from leading learning to learning about how adults learn. How do you plan learning that actually leads to practice in the classroom? How do you build teacher buy-in? How do you coach teachers? And how do you move from being just an evaluator to a coach that grows their practice? And what that looks like. And then how do you create systems for collective learning and sustain a culture of learning? And so inside that course there are videos all along the way that you can watch that talk about all of those topics, but then also along the way, there's all kinds of resources that are embedded in that course that you can then turn around and use. And so that's one of the main courses that's in the actual membership. The best part, I think, is the Purposeful Principal Club resource library. And so this is probably the most valuable piece. So I'm going to open it up really quick, see what's in here. So I'm just going to show you a couple of things that are in the resource library. So I've been developing this resource library since the beginning of last September, and I add new resources to the library every single week, and I will continue to do so through the life of this membership. So this storehouse of are in here, and I've been building for the past 5 years as a consultant, working with schools all over the US to build and design all kinds of different resources for teaching and learning and leading. So anyway, that being said, we'll take a little look at what's in here. So for example, let me go down a little bit further. Like here's an EDUC toolkit around learning walks. So if you like to lead learning walks in your school, then you would open this up and you would have all kinds of articles and videos and resources, learning walk templates. There's a learning walk training poster for your team. How do you engage students in learning rounds? Here's some discussion protocols. And then here are some all kinds of different resources that you have for leading learning walks. Or data talks. Let's say you want to have data talks with your teams. Here's some facilitation tips. Here's a data talks agenda template and a data action plan template. So you can see that around the holidays, here's a holiday celebration set of resources. Then in the springtime, I began developing a Tier 1 instruction series. Here's the first one right here. Actually, this is the 5th one. This is strategy 5. Anyway, so around the end of the year, calendar year, this past year, I started developing, it's called Best First Instruction in Every Classroom. And it's based on the research work of McCrell International. So if you know who that is, they partnered with Marzano to write the original Classroom Instruction That Works book. So if you ever read that back in the day, Classroom Instruction That Works was the huge meta-analysis that this research firm did with Marzano to look at all the research about what works, what strategies work for learning in classrooms. And they wrote the book, Classroom Instruction That Works. Well, they've written a new book, came out in 2022. It's called The New Classroom Instruction That Works. And they've whittled it down, all the massive amounts of research out of over 200 studies, to 14 key strategies for Tier 1 instruction to be really, really effective. And what I did, and I put in this resource library, is an hour-long learning session resources that you can use with your teachers for every single strategy. So strategies 1 through 14, they all have an agenda, they all have slides, they all have, like this one is on visualization and concrete examples, they all have teaching slides, and they also have a presenter's guide. So every single 14 of the Tier 1 instructional strategies for you to use with teachers, and these are about an hour long, so you could do them once a month during your faculty meeting, right? If you're doing learning, if you want to lead learning during your faculty meeting, you could do Best First Instruction, and you could do it all year round. Or you could choose 2 or 3. That's what I recommend, really. Don't try to do a different one for 14 weeks. That's crazy. Pick 2 or 3 that you would like your staff to get better at, right? Like maybe checking for understanding or using retrieval practice, whatever it is you want them to get better at, and then share those and then focus on getting better at those all year long. So anyway, those resources are in here along with all kinds of other resources, right? So I've got some end of the year stuff in here around celebrating your staff, appreciation, keeping good staff morale and retention resources. Anyway, there's resources in here for the whole year. I'm gonna go back. Let me go back to this now. Okay, so that's just a peek at what's in there. Like I said, every single week I put a set of resources in there around a different topic. But it's during our live bi-weekly coaching calls where I think some of the biggest value for this membership comes in. Private coaching with a leadership coach like myself costs thousands of dollars a year. But this allows our principals that are in our membership to get together and gather for a bi-weekly coaching call where we are on there together. Principals bring their biggest challenges. We talk about them, we problem solve them, we kind of put together our minds and give ideas to each other. But it's also a place for principals to go, hey, Jody, I really wish you'd work on this resource sometime in the coming weeks. I really could use X, Y, or Z to lead my PLCs, or X, Y, and Z to help me, have discussions around this with my families, or I really could use this kind of thing. I need a tracker for X, Y, or Z. And so this is the opportunity for principals to go, hey, we'd love to see this in the resource library. And then I curate and create and design resources that actually are what you need in real time. But you can also come into our Facebook group, our 24/7 Facebook community for the Purposeful Principals, where you connect with people, share your successes, share ideas and things you're working on that you want to share with the whole group, ask questions, ask for what you might need. This is also another place for you to tell me, hey, Jody, I really love this resource to show up in the resource library sometime this month. If that's possible, thanks. And then I would love to create stuff that you guys want in real time and need in real time as part of this membership. So our membership includes the course and the modules around instructional leadership, for which you can get CPE hours without ever leaving your campus. The resource library for you to put real learning into action without having to create it yourself. The live bi-weekly coaching calls that allows you to have coaching conversations with me and other principals to support the work that you're doing, because it can be really lonely in your building. You're the only person who does what you do in your school. And so because of that, having a group of other principals that you can talk to unfiltered outside of your own district is really valuable. I can tell you that what they get out of being able to be really vulnerable and honest with each other, and knowing that there's not going to be somebody from the inside of their district listening to them, allows them to really share honestly and lightens their load. Our 24/7 Facebook group where we can connect and share things. And then also, if you sign up between now and May 1st, I've got some bonuses for you. That talking. Bonus number 1 is a whole other course called The Principal's Guide to Leading with AI. I have created an entire course that shows principals how to leverage AI tools like ChatGPT and Google Gemini. There are instructional videos and practice prompts and lots of things built into this besides just how-to videos. You may think that you're using AI tools a lot already, but I can tell you that if you were to go through this course, you would discover some things that might be some additional time-saving tips and tools and ways to use AI that are going to save you a ton of time. So that's an extra course that you get if you sign up before May 1st for our group. Also, another bonus is the Classroom Impact Tracker. So this is just a tracker that allows you to record classroom visits. So you and your leadership team will record your classroom visits on one tab. And in the front tab, it actually has this that's built. I'll show you right now. You'll see that in this tab, you record all your learning walks, right? You've got drop downs for who's visiting the classroom, the teacher's initials or name, what subject are you observing, what grade level are you observing, and there's one for elementary, middle, and high school. And then the dashboard actually tells you or shows you at a quick glance Like, this is what kind of classroom visits are getting done the most. So you can see they have more walkthroughs than they do coaching and formal observations. And over here, it kind of tells you by grade level. You can see they're spending most of their time, the bulk of the time in 8th grade and less time over here in 7th grade. So then now they we need to get into some 7th grade classrooms, because they can see really quickly where they're spending their time. So that's another bonus that you guys get, your own version of that, that you can use however you want to. And then bonus number 3 is a purposeful principal 90-day jumpstart. So this goes hand in hand with the purposeful principal pathway course. And so this is a day-by-day principal journal of sorts that actually leads you to visit classrooms and reflect on what you're seeing and decide what action you're going to take based on those reflections. And it helps you build over 90 days habits of visiting classrooms every single day. And so this is a day-by-day journal that comes with it, will get emailed to you once you join. So you get all of these things, right? The courses, the resource library, the coaching calls, all of those things in one membership. And so you're probably thinking, what's that going to cost me, right? So what I will tell you is right now we're doing a founding membership drive. I'm still building all the founding members of this group. It hasn't been open for very long. And so for right now, it's $37 a month. So it's less than a DoorDash order. I ordered DoorDash for my mom the other day. She really wanted some sub sandwiches from Jimmy John's. So I ordered her some sandwiches, and 2 sandwiches, 6-inch sandwiches and chips and 2 drinks. And it was over $50. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is why I don't DoorDash. This is crazy. Anyway, this is less than that per month. But also you could pay for it monthly, or you could join for the complete year. So a year is just $369, which actually gives you 2 months for free and costs less than it costs you to go to your conference, your summer conference that you usually go to. So for example, today I signed up to attend TEPSA, which is our Texas Elementary Principal Association, because I'm presenting. And when you present at a conference, you also have to pay to go. So I joined, first of all, as a retired member so that I get the membership price. And then the membership price to attend this 3-day conference was $600. And that's after I paid $300 for my membership. So $900 I paid to them today to go for a few days. And so the fact that this is $369 for the entire year, it includes all kinds of online learning that you can do right from your office, plus all of the resources available, and then all the coaching that you would get in a small group to help you implement some of the ideas that are inside the leadership lab, so that you're leading the kind of work that you want to lead, and you're figuring out how to maximize your day so that this job doesn't take up your whole life. That's what we're focusing on in this group to do together. And so I hope you'll join. There's no long-term contracts. You can cancel anytime. I'll be sending you this Principal Spring Hiring Playbook. So if you listen to this webinar and you email me back with the one time saving strategy you're going to try and implement that was from the training, then I will email you this Spring Hiring Playbook that will give you all kinds of resources for hiring. So remember, today it's just $37 a month from now until the beginning of May. And then after that, this will go up to $47 a month for everyone else forevermore. So for right now, this is as cheap as you're going to get this. And this is a lot of tools, a lot of resources, a lot of personalized training and coaching, all for a fraction of what you'd pay for, conferences that you go to, professional learning that you attend, or coaching. If you were to pay an actual coach, like my private coaching clients, it costs thousands of dollars per year. And so this is actually something that'll give you a lot for your PD budget. So you might have some doubts, right, about how you might pay for this. So on the website, so if you go to the website, it's right here. It looks like this right here. So if you go to the website, you're going to see down here in the corner, there's four ways principals can fund the Purposeful Principal Club. And it talks about how to pay by PO if you want to pay with a district check. So you don't have, if you don't have a school credit card or don't have a district credit card that you can use to sign up right away, there's information in here about how you go about doing that, and also about how you might access some Title II funds from your curriculum director. I was a curriculum director for a long time, and managing our Title II funds was one of the things I was in charge of. And I can tell you, at the end of every single school year, we had a little money left over, and I would ask principals, what are you going to this summer? What would you like to go to? What would you like to, use up some of our leftover, Title II money on? And usually the squeaky wheels who reach out and ask for it are the ones that actually get to use it. So again, here's all the things that you get if you sign up today, or if you sign up before May 1st, you'll get it at our introductory founding member price of $37 a month, or $369 for the year. Again, less than you pay for your summer conference that you go to. So you can join now at our founding member prices, and I hope you will. I'm super excited to get to work with you, and I hope you'll let me support you in this journey. And thanks so much.